Welcome to the Embodied Wisdom Podcast.
Okay, so Miss Laura, you know what I'm dying to ask you. When did these giftings that you have, I know you consider yourself a medium, you consider yourself an intuitive, and you consider yourself a psychic. Is that correct? I want to know,
That's correct.
I want to know when these gifts came online, how did it happen, and how have you developed them over the years to really help people tap into their own life and really direct them to the desires that they have for themselves and their own purpose and passions.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give a little technical description at first, so everybody's kind of on the same page. Number one, everybody is psychic to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just like everybody can play basketball. Some people are just better at it than others. Okay, but mediumship is a separate gift. Okay, there's a lot of people who would argue, but the people really in the know don't argue. Okay, there's a lot of famous mediums out there telling the same story because there's a lot of people out there right now trying to sell their services, telling people that they can make them a medium. And if you have the gift already, somebody can help you develop it, but nobody can make you a medium because it's different. Psych psychic is intuitive. It's reading energy, and that's what really being psychic is. Mediumship is a totally different thing in the sense that you are basically an antenna for messages from the other side. Okay. Um, for because we don't go out and grab people and say, "Hey, come talk to us." They have to come to us. Okay, so that's the
And when you
difference
say
between us.
they have to come to us, who are the they?
Oh, when I'm referring to mediumship, it's the people who have crossed over, people on the other
Okay.
side, your loved ones and your friends and all those people who are happily on the other side, where we came from originally, by the way. We we come from, we go back to the same place. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care what you want to call it. You can call it heaven. That's great because that's kind of what it is. But yeah, we all come from and we go, oh, it's your cat. That freaked me for a second. I saw this little face all of a sudden appear over your shoulder.
They,
That was
whenever
hilarious.
energy is coming in,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
they
Especially
feel the energy and they have
they
to
want to be in
be.
the room. They want to be in the room. So sorry. That startled me for a second. I'm like, what is that? Uh, anyway, yeah.
You
So
thought it
that's
was you thought it was someone on the other side.
I was wondering there for a second. That was kind of weird. That's
Oh my
so
gosh.
funny. Now I've totally forgot what you asked me. Yes. How and when did my talents develop? Okay. I was very intuitive, very psychic from a young age, but I always thought when I was little that everybody got,
Yeah.
messages, everybody could see things and hear things and all this stuff. And I discovered fairly quickly that that was not the case. So I learned to keep my mouth shut.
Wow.
So the spiritual journey is never a straight line. Okay, your spiritual journey goes up and down and up and down. So when I was a little kid, I was pretty chill about it. It actually really started coming to the fore. When I was around 15, I had a really incredible out of body experience, which kind of really tuned me in and made me think totally differently about how everything worked, about life and death, what we really were. That was the time that I really learned that we weren't our bodies. Okay, there was
Right.
we who we really are, our identity was something way beyond the physical. Okay, so that was sort of the start. And then, of course, in my 20s, I wasn't concerned really about spirituality or anything at all. Pretty typical. Okay. And then as I got into my 30s, that's when I started reconnecting. I started reading a lot of books. I started playing around with energy healing and all kinds of different. Basically, it's when I went metaphysical.
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably the best way to describe it. Probably in my latter 30s, early 40s, I kind of did. I lived a double life. I had my corporate professional life and I had my private spiritual life, and the two never met.
Yeah.
Okay. In that sense. Then when I was in my early 50s, I had my whole life imploded and exploded at the same time. I ended a 30-year career. My partner died suddenly, and so this was the prerequisite to a massive healing journey for me. Because if you've ever had somebody very close to you pass, what it does is it brings up everything that you haven't looked at in your life from day one. Okay, so it really rocks your world, but it's the I call it the gift of passing, because when that happens for us, it really opens us up spiritually, and it really offers us an opportunity to heal. Okay, from all those things that we never dealt with, all the things we swept under the rug, all those things. And actually even things from past lives, by the way.
Yeah.
But some people take advantage of it and some people don't. I took advantage of it. I went on a wild healing journey. I spent about a month and a half in Brazil at a trans healer who was called, his name is John of God. You may or may not be familiar with him. Then through that, I got led into finding out about ayahuasca. And basically, a month or so after I got back from Brazil, I was off to do an extended 3-week intensive ayahuasca journey in the jungles of Peru in the Amazon.
How cool.
And oh yeah, it was pretty wicked, by the way. Not for the faint of heart.
Mm.
And then I came back, and I was really not knowing what I wanted to do, what direction I wanted to go in. But I decided, again, I was led to this. I decided, okay, definitely wasn't going back to my old career. I had gotten into yoga in a big way. And I decided, oh, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. So off Laura goes again for a month for an intensive yoga teacher training course,
Uh-huh.
which was fabulous. But of course, actually, even before I got back, but definitely when I got back, I realized that this whole yoga journey was for my healing. It wasn't for me to become a yoga teacher. As much as I love yoga, and that yoga continues to be a part of my life. So yoga's been a serious part of my life, probably about, time flies when you're having fun, at least 12 years, okay, constantly. So yoga is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, and at that point, I had to decide what I was going to do. And I just really felt a calling to start using my spiritual gifts, which is when I started my practice. And I started working one-on-one with people in terms of my spiritual counseling, and also my spiritual coaching, which coaching is not really the right word. Probably more like mentorship is actually closer. And then also doing in-person mediumship sessions, group sessions. So that's a Reader's Digest. There's a lot of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
things,
And I
but
know where I want to go here because you said something so profound, which I believe it with all my heart, which is grief opens us up to,
yes.
um, because, I lost my father when I was 11, and I totally believe that it
Oh
really
yeah.
causes you to go within, to heal those wounds, but also it opens us up to like, okay, what happens next? Maybe our own mortality.
Yes.
I don't believe in death, but this idea of death that we are surrounded with, right? Everyone
Yeah.
I work with on a deep trauma level, they're scared of death. And it's because it's this mysterious, like, ooh, what's behind the veil? What's after I climb out of this meat suit? And you're touching on these greater aspects of our beingness, right? And I love because you talk about past lives and parallel lives. I've listened to all your stuff, girl. I know what you're.
Wow, you've done your homework.
I have done my homework. And because I believe that this is our opportunity to really share with people, hey, you're not just the meat suit. You're so much more. And so that's really what you do with your mentees is you share with them the greater part of who they are, whether it's past lives, whether it's the whole soul level.
Hmm.
And that's what I really want to tap into when you're talking about
Okay.
this, when you're talking about on the soul level of all the different aspects of us. I
Oh,
think
that's a big topic. Yeah.
it's a really big topic, but if we could just take it apart for a second and be like, I really think that that's what heals a person, is to know that they're not just the meat suit that looks back at them in the mirror. I think that's really what gave me the most relief, that once this physical life is over, that's not the end.
Oh,
So,
definitely not. Yeah. And
so
the biggest thing is, what I always say to everybody is we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not a physical being having a spiritual experience. And those are two
right.
very different things. Now, you brought up the words aspect. Now, I have to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about here. Um, our souls are huge. Okay. Our souls are huge. So only a tiny portion of that soul energy fits into this human body. So this is where that concept of the oversoul or the higher self, that's all the rest of your soul. Now, your higher self can decide to have multiple lives at the same time. And those different lives are called aspects of the soul. So there could be a number of different yous on the earth at the same time. They could be different gender. Well, they will be. There'll be different genders. They'll be in different parts of the world. They'll be born into different cultures. Because the whole purpose of this, the whole purpose of existing here on earth, by the way, is for the soul's evolution, for the soul to have all kinds of different experiences. So this is why aspects come into play, and they're usually, and this is where the concept of twin flames comes from, by the way, because twin flames are really two aspects of the same soul. Okay. Now, that's what a real twin flame is. A lot of people talk about twin flames, just what they're really talking about is soulmates. Now,
Mhm.
soulmates are different, okay? Soulmates are actually simply, not simply, but they, in terms of
Not
the
simply.
oversoul, there's nothing simple about this. Um, they're just members of our soul family. We're all part of a soul family, and soul families tend to incarnate on the same time, soul groups on the earth. And we tend to switch around roles because your soul family, your soul group, is all these wonderful souls that you've got all these agreements and contracts and everything with to help each other evolve. And this is why you keep incarnating at the same time on the earth in different roles, because that way you get the biggest bang for your buck, shall we say, in terms of learning lessons, because this is schoolhouse earth. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the reason we're here. So that's how that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking of this book that I just finished, A Journey of Souls.
Oh,
Um,
there you go.
yeah, the past life regressionist. I'm blanking on his name, but he talks about that, when he takes someone back through their certain lifetimes, they see where that same soul was different roles in each of the individual lives. So that idea of that soul family where they fulfill
We just
all
keep
of these
coming back
different.
together. Just imagine it. I always say, just imagine it as a big group of friends that keeps going to different parties with each other over and over again in different meat suits. And
Yes.
that's how it works. See, that's why it's different from a twin flame, because a real twin flame, this is what I've been shown, is that a real twin flame is actually another aspect of your soul, okay, of the same soul of you, okay. And the reason it's so rare that people actually run into a twin flame is because our soul, our oversoul, our higher self wants to spread these aspects out all over the earth as far as possible so that really they don't meet, because that interferes with their individual experiences, right? So I tell you, if you really actually do end up running into a true soulmate, which is an aspect of your higher self,
You mean twin
the same
flame?
as you are, yeah, twin flame,
Yeah.
yes. The real reason you're coming together is to help each other. Okay, so that time isn't wasted. You're
You
again
helping you.
you, yeah, you helping you. Yes, because that is that's why twin flame experiences are so incredibly intense
Yeah.
because you're actually simply dealing with another aspect of yourself and you're mirroring for each other so that you can learn more faster.
Yeah. I love that. So let's go into that grief piece because
Mm,
because that grief piece is something that so many people are feeling right now. And it doesn't have to be the physical loss of someone as in the death experience. It could be the loss of a relationship.
yeah.
I'm noticing a lot of and I'll call them healers. I don't believe that any of us heal another. I believe that we hold them to their own healing, lead them to their own healing, but we'll call them healers for the sake of there's not a better
Yep.
name. So we have tons of healers. Me in my world, I'm around a lot of podcasters, a lot of people in the coaching, the healing coaching field. And I'm seeing so many of them single right now, healing themselves and wondering where their soulmate is. And I find it funny because it's like all of them. Where
Yeah.
do you think we're at in our expansion, in our ascension timeline that all these like healers are single and searching for this love
Okay.
piece?
Okay. The reason for that, and it's not just healers, by the way, it's a lot of people in general,
Right.
okay? But it's intense, it's definitely intense in the spiritually awakened group, which healers are part of. It's incredibly, incredibly common right now. Now, there's a huge reason for this because we are about to have a major, major shift. Okay, we are going into what the only thing I can call it is a quantum leap in consciousness that's coming. Like nobody knows exactly when, but it's really close. And I'm not talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the road. I'm talking about in before 2030, before
Yeah.
2030,
That's
in the
that's
next
what I've
5
been
years.
hearing by
Yeah, and
2030.
actually, honestly, the way this speed at which things are going, it would not shock me if it's in the next 2 years. Okay,
Mm.
either 2025 or 2026. And this is why, because, okay, this is going to take a little bit of explaining.
Oh, I'm here
um,
for it, girl.
okay, when we hit the quantum leap, we want to be at the highest vibration possible because it's like, okay, it's like there's all these different diving boards, okay? And you want to be on the highest diving board possible when that leap comes because you're going to go further from that high diving board. There's no judgment on this, by the way, because everybody, as soon as I start talking like this, it's a human thing. We start going into judgment. Doesn't matter where you're at, but you want to be at the highest level that you possibly can. And the way you get there is by healing. That's why everybody is so focused, especially healers, because if they don't know this consciously, they know it subconsciously. Okay. So they're being driven to heal. Okay. And the fastest way to heal is when you're on your own, because let's face it, relationships take energy and work. So if you're on your own, you can simply focus on yourself and you can do much more in a shorter period of time. Okay. That's why. And a lot of people too were in relationships that weren't, how shall I say, in their best interest for raising their vibration. So a lot of people, like not only in the healing, but a lot of people who are simply awakened or starting to awaken know this again, either consciously or subconsciously. So they're getting out of relationships that were not serving them. Okay, this is why there's
Yeah.
so many single people right now because it's almost like I almost say that there's like a race to literally get yourself to the highest vibrational level possible so that everybody's going to take the quantum leap, it's just how far are you going to go? Okay. So, and actually, it doesn't even matter if you're totally asleep, okay, and you're not awakened at all. Even those people, a lot of people don't understand that. Even these people are going to awaken, okay? This is going to be the greatest awakening and quantum jump ever.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
this
what
is
I've
what
been
I'm told by
hearing.
my guides ever. Okay, so what they told me, actually, they started talking to me about this seriously in 2020. Okay, and what they told me is that now you have to remember we're looking at from 2020, so they're talking about the 10 years from 2020 to 2030. They said we are going to be, the change is going to be equivalent to 300 years in 10. Okay. So that's pretty, even then it was hard for me to wrap my brain around that. So what I did to make it more understandable is if you look at the earth, most of the changes in the last 300 years happened in the last 100 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So even if you look at the last 100 years and you say, okay, we're going to have a 100 years evolution in 10 years, that's still a tenfold leap. Okay. Which is massive, massive. Okay. So now we're in 2025. We've only got 5 years left. Okay. So this is why time is so accelerated. This is why there's so much energy going on. This is why there's so many crazy things happening politically, religiously. The physical earth herself is also going through this change. Okay. This is why you notice there's a few volcanoes and there's a few earthquakes and massive storms and all these things that are going on, right? It's crazy. And plus, there's all this convergence of cycles. And I'm not going to go into them all because there's people all over the place talking about that. But I think every kind of cycle there possibly is converging on this period in time. Okay. Including the sun, which, by the way, is a huge driver energetically of this, because we're probably in one of the fiercest high points of the 11-year sun solar cycle that we've ever been through. Okay. Which is what is also driving all of these volcanoes and earthquakes and all this crazy weather and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
these
Okay.
solar flares are intense.
Yes. And it's crazy. And that energy, when the sun basically vomits or pukes all that energy onto us, that it's not only affecting the earth, that energy goes into us, which is also helping us to evolve. Okay. It's part of that leaping situation. So it's
Yeah.
really it's this time literally is unprecedented. And I just don't mean in the last 300 years. I'm talking basically since the beginnings of the earth is what I've been told. And
Mm.
this is also why there's so many galactics, and that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
all that stuff is going on too. It's because everybody's here to watch and to some extent assist in some ways, but they're not here to save us. Okay. We're the ones that have to direct ourselves. So this is well, I'll give you an example. As a psychic looking out into the future, there's this thing. Once I look to 2030, there's kind of this there's this like kind of wall. It's not really a wall, but it's like a stopper. Okay. And I kept asking why that is. And what my guides basically told me is if you look at my arm, we're on this track. The track is my arm, and 2030 is my hand. So there's all these different roads that we could go down. So say there's 5 different roads that we can go down. And by the way, I'm not going into fear porn. These are all 5 roads are all awesome possibilities. But what's going on is once we get to 2030, we have to decide as a collective, and I'm talking about the human species, which one of those roads we're going to go down. Okay. And it's not that any of them are bad. It's just they're different. Okay. So this is why once you get to 2030, everything's really fuzzy and it's hard to nail anything down. It's because we are going to be creating it and it hasn't been created yet.
Yeah, so
Does that make sense?
we get to choose. And
We get to choose. Yeah.
are you under this a belief that we're all going to be choosing different roads, or we're going to choose the same together? Because we know that
Okay.
everyone does not have the same there's no two people that
No.
I know that have the exact same perception on
No,
this
it's
thing
going to
called
be
reality.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to be a choice, but it's what it's going to be. The choice is not like so much as a mental choice. It's a choice of vibration.
Right.
Okay. And it's not just a single vibration. What there are groups of vibrational levels. Okay. And this is where the multi-earths come from. Okay. The multi-earths are not physical Earths. It's not all of a sudden like there's going to be, 6 Earths orbiting around the sun. It's that it's like the Russian dolls, okay? They're different dimensional Earths, which are all nested in together in the same space. So there's going to be people at different levels, different vibrations are going to end up on different Earths. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's going to be, and my understanding that the way they showed it to me is there's going to be ranges of vibration. So let's say Earth number 1 has a range, and if you fit in that range, you're going to end up on that dimensional Earth. And then there's a second range too, okay? And those people will end up on Earth number 2 vibrationally within all these nested interdimensional Earths, okay? But in the interim, for the first little while, there's going to be, you can kind of bounce back and forth between different levels, depending on your own vibration, okay? But you have to be on the higher scale of that range in order to go to the next Earth at all, okay? But sooner or later, your vibration has to be a match for that group, because then there's going to be no more of this switching back and forth. Okay, that will end.
And maybe that's why, Laura, that's why we're not in these partnerships like we have been in the past. What I see in partnerships, because that's what I deal with mostly, is that the way that we cohabitated is not really going to be in alignment for what we're moving into. In the same way, this need, this codependency for the other person, we have to be self-sufficient. We have to do our own inner healing. And we have to almost, for those of us, I know, because I've gone through my healing journey with my husband. We've been together 19 years. I went through my healing journey with him, but I went through a time where I said, I can't look at him. I have to put my blinders on. I have to go within me. I have to heal me, look at me. And that's what I tell all my clients to do. We have to stop looking at your partner, and we have to make this about you, because you're going on your separate journeys. And it's so interesting that we're talking and I'm having these like aha moments of like, that's why, because we're moving into a place where we can no longer depend on each other to raise our own frequency, which in my opinion, that's removing all the old stuck pain, all the traumas, all the old stuck stuff from the past that we have to, break up with. We have to eliminate, we have to cut the cords to, in order for us to boing, bounce up.
Okay, I think this will make it more understandable when it comes to partnerships, okay? If you have a partner that you don't have to be exactly the same vibration, okay? But you have to be within a range,
yes.
Okay? And if you happen to be in a relationship with somebody who's like, okay, I'll give you an example. Say you've really been doing your work, okay? And say that your husband, through his own choices, decided, I'm not doing any of that crap.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of a sudden, what ends up happening is you got one partner here, one partner up here. Okay. Yeah. And I guarantee you, those two partners are, even after the quantum leap, are not going to the same place. Okay. Yeah. This is actually more to the point why people are breaking up too. Because if there's huge differences in vibration, they're simply not a vibrational match anymore. Like I said, you don't have to be exactly the same as your partner, but you got to be within a reasonable range. Okay. Because remember I said there's going to be ranges for each of those dimensional Earths. So the thing is, this is why people, and this is actually, honestly, this is why even before all this is happening, this is one of the huge reasons why people broke up, why marriages ended, why relationships ended. Because often when people get together initially, they're both kind of in the same place. Yeah. Okay. Then one partner starts growing and the other partner decides, not so much. I'm not doing anything. And it could be the man or the woman or whatever. If you're in the same sex, your partner. Okay. One partner is working. The other partner's Okay. So over the years, they become not only an emotional and mental mismatch, they literally become an energetic vibrational mismatch.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
And
not even
finally,
close
like
to
you,
being in
they're
resonance.
not even close to being compatible. So all of a sudden you just kind of look at your partner and go, oh my God, I cannot be with this person anymore because they are just so different. Like we were really alike when we got together, and that's probably why we got together in the first place. But now that we're just so different, and you might still love this person. Okay. This is the hard issue. Okay.
Yeah.
You might really still love this person, but you just know on every layer, I say when you know this, on every layer of your being, that you just can't, this person, you can't be with this person anymore. And, honestly, there are some people who are meant to be together for a whole lifetime or the majority of a lifetime, but that honestly, that's very rare. I think our changing, I think that's one of the things that's really going to change because honestly, our partners are there to be mirrors for us. They're there to
Yeah.
help us grow and we're to help each other grow. And when that mission is finished, it's finished.
That's
You
exactly how I see it. I
Yeah, and
see
it's
that
not.
it's going to be way more. It's since we're on that accelerated timeline, it's almost going to be more challenging for us to stay small for that other person, even meaning
Oh,
keeping
you won't
our
be able to.
frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So,
won't be able to.
so as much love as you have, it just is clashing. And I think that as we grow, I see it the same way you do. Our partnerships they're going to look completely different, but they also might not last as long because we're on
No.
this quantum leaping timeline where we're just like, it's moving too fast to stay on that same
Well, for people who
plane.
have, I love this example because some people have a hard time wrapping their head around that. But what I use is the example of careers, okay? Because back in the day, okay, say 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago,
I
right?
know where you're going. Yep.
Everybody, okay, you got a career, you stayed there for 30 years till you got your gold watch and you retired, okay? Well, I tell you, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, a lot of times, people are in a job for 2 or 3 years, and then they're on to something else. And then they're in that job for 2 or 3 years, and then they're on to something else. Okay. Or it could even be a different career, not just a different company, but it could be a different career. So
Yes.
I think that kind of model is going, and it might be longer than 2 or 3 years, but that type of model where we move from partner to partner depending on what we need to know and how we want to grow, I think that's going to be the new model for relationships.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be interesting because then what that happens if we no longer, but see, almost the nuclear family is almost gone anyway. When okay, give you an example. When I was growing up, actually my parents were separated and divorced when I was very, very young. Okay. And there was no such thing even as the term of a single parent family. Okay. If your parents were divorced when you were young, when I was young, you were from a broken home,
Right.
okay? And you were going to end. I actually had a teacher in grade school tell me that my sister and I were going to end up being teenage mothers, and my brother was going to end up in jail
Oh, that's
because we
sweet.
were
What a
from.
sweat
Oh yeah,
teacher.
we were from a broken home, so that was it. But this is how radically different
Yeah.
the perceptions of things have changed. But I think one of the greatest impacts in terms of relationships is going to be on how we raise our children. Okay? Because
Mm.
if you no longer have, because honestly, I think still we have a majority of two-parent families, okay? Even if they're not necessarily the same parents, okay? There's still this model of having two parents when you have, when you're in the child rearing years, okay? There is a lot of single parents, but if you look at the populace as a whole, I think it's still leaning in that direction. But I can tell you right now, with what's going to happen, it's going to be leaning in the totally opposite direction. Because if people are having children and then they're moving from relationship to relationship, how we deal with children is going to change and raise children is going to change radically. Okay. Because I can tell you right now, the way this co-parenting model for all these, single parent families and people who have remarried with other children, it ain't working. Okay. And there's some people that have really good co-parenting skills, but by and large, uh, this is a huge problem. Like you've got two people that basically hate each other who have children together and they're trying to make it work. And I tell you, it isn't working. Not only is it not working for the adults, the parents, it's not working for the kids. Okay. So what's that going to look like?
Well, I honestly think, for a lot of people, I don't know if you've gone into any of the oh, what's it called when they go into the future? I can't think. I'm brain farting, but I've
In
heard
what way?
well, when they what is that
Predictions?
word? No, not predictions.
Go into the future how? In looking at what's going to happen in the
Yeah,
future?
exactly. When they go to not astral projection, but it's similar where
Oh, you're talking about now you got me in. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
I gotta
Um,
find that word or else it's gonna drive me
oh no, now
crazy.
you made I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the people who do the oh shit.
Yes.
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 Yes, yes. I know what you're talking about. Seeing the future. They go in and
They
look
go,
at
yeah,
different
yeah,
scenarios in the future. Yeah.
yes. And so many of them are talking about how we're going to be moving back into tribes, smaller
Yes. Yes.
communities, how we're going to be more self-sufficient in our tribes, there's going to be a lot less children born, so they will be very much honored by the tribe,
And raised by the community.
raised by the community instead
Yeah.
of just two parents. So that looks so beautiful to me when I hear these predictions, we'll call them, because we also have to choose that timeline, right? Just like you said,
Yeah.
we got these 5 different lines we can go down. Which timeline are we going to choose as a whole? But it's so beautiful that we will go back to tribes because I think tribes is really where we thrived, where we did this life thing together, much more connected, much more like, okay, you make the food, you collect
Well, it's
we
not just
worked.
that. The huge thing that we lost when we went out of that tribal thing is multi-generational family members.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? Because you used to have, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, aunts and uncles, excuse me, all, especially when we're talking about child rearing, okay?
Yes.
Because you had your elders there, and the parents weren't only teaching the children, the elders were teaching the children. If you look at, I guess our best example now is if you look at some of the indigenous cultures that are still here on the earth, that's the way they work, okay?
Yes.
And
So
it's
beautiful.
so different. And if you even look back, here's Laura, the knowledge sponge. If you look back at even some of the North American First Nations people, okay, they had very different customs. Okay, and some of the Indian tribes, the children belonged to the woman. They had a matrimonial thing, okay? And the father of her children did not raise her children. It was her brothers that raised her children,
Oh.
okay? And then the father would be helping to raise the children of his sisters. You see what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it was totally different. There's so many different ways that this can be set up. And if you look at it, um, the fact that we now have a patriarchal system, that has never been true, okay? Only to the last little while has that ever been true.
Right.
Almost if you look at I love ancient civilization stuff and
Me
ancient,
too.
all that stuff. But most of them were all based on a matrimonial hierarchy, not a patriarchal hierarchy.
Right.
So everything, even for example,
Yes,
inheritance,
the
land,
females were the
land,
leaders.
owning the land and stuff like that. That was all down through the matrimonial line. That had nothing to do with the patriarchy. They were the warriors. They were the hunters. but the women owned the land, and the reason the women owned the land is because the women were the gardeners and
Yeah,
the
they were the matriarchs.
yeah, they
They
were
were
the
the
matriarchs, and they
leaders.
were also the gatherers, and they had to own the land because they're the ones that reap the bounty from the land.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? And
yeah,
this goes way back. This goes back in our history, and trust me, it goes back to history that we don't know about. Okay, it
right.
was all based on a matrimonial, more of a matriarchal system is the word I'm looking
Yeah,
for
and we're
now.
returning back
Matriarchal.
to that. As the feminine
Yes.
rises, we're returning back to that because especially women, they say women who have completed their menstrual cycles, they're filled with the wisdom. They no longer have the chaos of all those hormones. We get four hormones each. They no longer have that. So they are looked at as these like wisdom holders because they have all that feminine energy of the just that maternal love, right? Running our systems. Just think about how
Yeah.
beautiful that could be. And we're returning back to that. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And as us women, I know for me personally, I see a lot of women, including myself, that have a lot of masculine energy, still operating with a lot of the masculine energy as we're learning how to integrate both the masculine and feminine parts of ourselves to be
Yeah.
nice and aligned. That's where I see we're going, as well as men stepping
Well,
into
as
more
well
of
as men. Yeah, that's what I was
their
just gonna
their
say.
their healed their healed masculine where they're actually wanting more of that healing. Okay, so Laura, is there anything you would like to promote? Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where are you at?
Okay, that's easy. You can visit me on my website at www.spiritspeaks2, the number 2.me. You can reach me easy if you're looking for more information or set up a session. You can reach me by email. Again, it's very easy. It's Laura Hoorweg at gmail.com. I'm all over Facebook, Instagram. What else? Oh, LinkedIn. But I'm sure our beloved host is going to put all these links in the show
Yes,
notes.
you better believe it. Um,
Yeah. So, you know, come see me, come talk to me. I'm my passion is to help people make their lives work
yes.
and help them to find their authentic selves, because that is the true reason we're here, is because when we were born and we came into the world, we were our authentic selves, and almost from that second on we were coerced, we were brainwashed, we were told who we
Manipulated.
should be. Manipulated is another good word, by society, by our culture, by our parents, by school, by religions. So it's really been a hard battle to try to help people to know who they really are supposed to be,
Hmm.
who they are authentically, instead of who everybody's told them they should be.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Well, it has been so fun talking with you. We probably should have a part two because there's a lot we could still get into,
Oh,
right?
I know, an hour is just not long enough.
Yeah. But
It's Laura 2.0.
okay. Laura 2.0.
Laura 2.0, yeah.
Okay, my darling. Well, thank you so much. And it has just been such a blessing to get to know you. And yeah, I look forward to our next connect period.
Awesome. I'm just so happy we got a chance to connect. I love the energy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to our next adventure.
Yes. Okay. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.